Hi, welcome back to Kalike. We are doing yet another session on mechanics. So we are going to talk about scalars and vectors. Now, before we straight away go on to define what are scalars and vectors, if you remember in our previous discussion where we discussed different kinds of motion along a straight line, it was very easy for us to describe the direction in which a given object or a point object was traveling. Why? Because we were basically talking about motion along a straight line. So what do you mean by that? So you are basically talking about motion along a straight line, right? So that means it is either traveling along the positive x-axis or it is traveling along the negative x-axis, right? So it is either positive or negative. So when we had to deal with directions in that class, we only spoke about plus or minus signs, positive direction or negative direction. Negative direction is the opposite of the positive direction. So we did not have to bother much about directions. So either it was a positive direction or it was a negative direction in which a given point object was traveling. But that was the case in motion along a straight line. Now, in reality, we have objects moving along a two-dimensional space or a three-dimensional space. So what do you mean by two-dimensional space or three-dimensional space? Two-dimensional is across a plane, any object traveling on a XY plane. If I'm talking about three-dimensional plane, it is definitely I'm talking about the X, Y, and Z axis. So what happens? How do you define directions in such cases? That is where we introduce the concept of vectors. We refer to those physical quantities where you define certain directions as vectors. Why are they termed as vectors? Because there this analogy of just giving directions as positive direction and negative direction fails. You can't just say it is positive or negative. For example, if it is traveling in space, let's imagine if this is the south, north, east and west directions, and you have an object traveling like this from point A to point B. How will you say whether a positive direction, negative direction? It's not possible. So you'll have to say the direction. If you take this as the origin, this is the positive y-axis, negative y-axis, positive x-axis, negative x-axis. So from here you define a direction. You say at certain angle at different points of time. If you take time t1, t2, t3, t4, at different points of time, you define where exactly is that object from the origin, and you can also measure the angle that makes that straight line that you draw from the origin to the point where you are measuring the distance, where exactly you are pointing the object to, make certain angle with the direction of the x-axis. So in case of three-dimensional and two-dimensional vectors, it is no more easy to define directions just by positive and negative. In fact, there is a lot more involved when it comes to defining directions. So in this class we are going to talk about what are vectors, what are scalars, do they behave just like the normal, do they follow the normal rules of algebra, how do you multiply a vector, add or subtract a vector when it comes to directions, right? So also we will learn about triangular law of vector addition and parallelogram law of vector addition. So stay tuned, let's explore more. What are scalars? So why do we have a term called scalars? Scalars are, scale, the name itself suggests you scale is magnitude. So you are basically only talking about the magnitude of a given physical quantity. So what are the physical quantities that we know so far? We know quantities like velocity, acceleration, force, momentum, mass, temperature, volume, right? So what are in among all these quantities, which are those quantities where you only talk about a number and you do not bother about in what direction that physical quantity is, right? For example, if I talk about mass, suppose you go to a vegetable market, you want to buy 3 kgs of apple, and then let's say you buy 1.5 kilos of grapes, right? So there you're not bothered in what direction you are buying that quantity, right? You're only bothered about the magnitude of the quantity bought. So such quantities, so what is the quantity that we are referring to here? We are referring to a quantity called mass. So let's debug it one by one. So let's say the mass of an apple, the mass of the apple that you bought is about 3 kilos, and the mass of grapes that you bought is about 1.5 kilos. So what is the total mass you bought? It is, this can be written as 3.0, so this will be 4.5 kilos in total. Now, are you bothered about the direction in which you bought these quantities? So what is the physical quantity that we are referring to? It is mass. So mass is one such quantity where you're only bothered about the scale or the magnitude of how much you bought it. So such physical quantities in physics are what are referred to as scalars, where we do not have to even think about the direction. I'll quote you another example. Let's talk about the temperature of the room that we are standing in. Imagine I'm standing in a room which measures a temperature about 16 degrees Celsius. So the temperature, room temperature, so I will write the room temperature TR, temperature of the room as 17 degrees Celsius or 16 degrees Celsius for that matter. Imagine the outside temperature. The temperature outside today is about 28 degrees Celsius. So what is the difference in temperature? So what is the difference in temperature? It is temperature outside minus temperature in the room. You measure it, it comes around 8 minus 7 is 1, 2 minus 1 is 11. So there is a difference in temperature of about 11 degrees Celsius. Are you bothered about the direction here? Are you bothered in what direction is it measuring 11 degrees or 17 degrees or 28 degrees? It will be uniform. It is usually the same, right? So therefore, even in such a physical quantity like temperature, we are only bothered about the magnitude, the scale, the number, the real number, and not about the direction. Such physical quantities are what are referred to as scalars. Another example is, very good example is volume. So when you are measuring the volume of liquid, a given liquid, when you are trying to measure the volume of any given liquid, let's say you're trying to measure the volume of, water. If you have in a bucket, the volume of water is, let's say, I'll take a random, you have 2 liters, and then you add one more, it's a big bucket, let's say, or, let's take it 1 liter, and then you add some more volume of water to it. Let's say you add 0.5 liters. So all together you have 1.5 liters of the liquid in the bucket, water in the bucket. So here also you are only bothered about the magnitude and not the direction. So you are only bothered about the magnitude of the liquid collected and not bothered in what direction do you have 1 liter or in what direction you have 0.5 liters. No, it doesn't make any sense. So always remember, it is very easy to understand and define. It is essential that you understand and register the concept of scalars just like we do vectors, because the basic difference is scalars, we are only concerned about the magnitude, the measure or the scale at which you are measuring, and not the direction. Another important point is a scalar, which is a physical quantity. What are the scalars that we are referring to here? The physical quantities like mass, temperature, and volume. If you notice one common thing, you see that in all of these quantities, we are talking basically about a number associated with a unit. So a number associated with the unit is what is known as a scalar, right? So here there are no directions. I'm not saying I'm measuring this quantity in the north direction. If I measure it in south direction, it will be something different. If I measure it in east direction, it will be something different. No, it doesn't make any sense. You're only bothered about the measure and the unit associated with it. So such physical quantities are what are usually referred as scalars. Well, a simple common doubt that I've seen among most learners is they know how to define a vector, but they conceptually do not understand what a vector is. Let's debug all your myths one by one today. So, what's a vector? I mean, by definition, you all know that vectors are those physical quantities which not only have a measure, which not only have a number along with the unit associated with them. What do you mean by a number along with the unit associated? Magnitude. We call that a magnitude. Suppose if I'm talking about, the velocity of a car. Okay, so the velocity of a car is given by, let's say, 18 meter per second. So this is a number and this is the SI unit associated with it. So this is basically a measure or a magnitude of what physical quantity? A physical quantity called velocity, which is the rate of change of displacement with respect to time, right? So for every second, how much is the displacement covered by that particular object? It is about 18 meters. That is what is this quantity set telling us all about. So it is giving you the magnitude. Also, it tells you in what amount of time what is the displacement taken. So this number precisely gives you that measure. But vector, a physical quantity like vector, not only gives you that measure, that scale or that magnitude along with its SI unit, but it also tell you in what direction is that quantity heading towards. So here, what is the missing point? When somebody says where is the car, in what direction, so specifically we ask in what direction we are. If you want to locate that object, any car moving with that particular speed, if somebody asks where is it, so you need to know the direction to reach that object, right? So that directional quantity associated with vectors cannot be, as I mentioned, just specified by saying positive and negative. You cannot just simply say plus 18 meter per second minus 18 meter per second. You can, if that motion is along a straight line, but if we are talking about two-dimensional or three-dimensional space, this no longer holds. I cannot simply say it is plus 18 meter per second or minus 18 meter per second. I'll have to specify in what direction is it heading. I might have to say due east, okay, that is, or due west, or you can also say due southwest. It is moving due southwest, or it is moving due northeast, right? Also, there is another way of saying it. We also say, we generally, any object moving, if this is the position of the object, let's say this is the x-axis, this is, if you are plotting position versus time, and this is the position of the object at a particular time, then you, from the origin, you draw a straight line to that object, reach that object, and say, and you see what is the angle it makes with this positive x-axis, which is the time axis. Suppose this turns out to be 60 degree, then you say it is moving 18 meter per second with making an angle of 60 degree with the positive x-axis if you are talking about a two-dimensional plane. So vectors, as you understand, are physical quantities which do not only have measure, that is the magnitude along with the SI unit, but also specify a particular direction. So this is something that you must remember. Now, do these vectors follow the simple rule of algebra? No, they do not. Do they follow simple rules of arithmetics? No, they do not. Like scalars follow all the simple rules of mathematics, algebra, and arithmetic, whereas these vectors follow special rules which we are going to explore today, right? So when you are adding two vectors, we use special laws like parallelogram law of vector addition and triangle law of vector addition, which we are going to explore in much detail today. Well, now it is very important to know what physical quantities are referred to as vectors. We studied that it's something that has a measure, a magnitude along with direction is what we call a vector. So examples of such vectors are velocity, acceleration, because you have to specify a certain direction. Force also, you need to specify in what direction was the force applied, because that matters a lot when answering any mathematical calculation or any question related in physics. So it is very crucial that you specify the direction. The basic question is, how do you represent a vector? Is there a way to represent the vector? Yes, certainly. vectors are generally written as, suppose if I told you velocity is a vector, so if I have to write velocity, if I write it plainly, so 18 meter per second, no, I cannot just write it like this. If I have to, this becomes the magnitude. If I have to write the direction, I'll have to put an arrowhead on top and write it as 18 meter per second due what direction? Let's say due east. So I am specifying the direction as well as the magnitude. Now, how do you write the magnitude of a given vector? You want to retain the vector symbol, but also want to, just write the magnitude of a given vector. You write it in absolute magnitude. So you write it in the modulus. So this is the modulus symbol. So you write the same vector. This is nothing but vector. If you write it within the modulus and you have an arrowhead, so which is nothing but the plane V, and you can just write it as 18 meter per second, and you do not have to bother about the direction, because basically you're talking about only the magnitude and not the direction. So this is how you represent a vector. This is the representation of any vector. Always remember to write an arrowhead. When you're talking about magnitude, please remember to write it within the modulus, or just plainly you can always write it as V is 18 meter per second. Well, you might have confusion. I know in most physics classes they talk about position vector, and you might not even know what actually position vector means. You just learned it, but you do not basically understand what a position vector is. So basically, position vector is a vector that gives you the position of an object at any given particular time instant. For example, let's take this example. I've taken a point object which is moving in an xy plane. So I've plotted the position time graph. X refers to position, T refers to time. It is basically a two-dimensional motion along two dimension. So the object is moving along a plane. It has covered some certain distance. It has moved from point A to point B to point C. Okay. Now, so at certain distance of, if it was one dimensional motion, it would have been a curve or a straight line. You would rather say at this given instant of time, it is at position A, position B and position C, but it is along a plane, right? So how do you say the position of this object at various instant of time? For vectors, if I have to, if I have to just tell the, position where it is, I can just say at point A, point B, if I have the values, I can quote it. If not, what we do is we choose a convenient location, and the obvious convenience location is the origin of the xy axis. From there, we draw a straight line pointing towards A with an arrowhead. Similarly, if I want to know the position at B, similarly, I draw an arrowhead pointing from the origin to the place where I want to locate its position. So these vectors, so how do you write a vector? Vector OA and vector OB are called position vectors because they are giving you the position of that point object at any given particular instant of time. Now, if I call this position vector as R1 with an arrowhead and this is R2 with an arrowhead, so therefore this will be vector R1 and this will be vector R2. That is how you write it. Now, how do you write the magnitude? The magnitude will be, magnitude of this quantity will be absolute magnitude within the modulus symbol. So it will be simply R1. Similarly, the magnitude of vector OB is R2. So these gives you the values. Now, if you have to find the displacement, what is the displacement? So AB is the path length, right? So you measure along the path and you measure the path length. If you have to calculate the displacement, then you have to draw a vector pointing from, because this is the initial position and this is the final position for this path covered. So final position and initial position. Let me call this path as AB dash. AB, vector AB. So what does vector AB give you? Vector AB is the displacement vector because it gives you the final and initial position of that point object at any given instant of time. So this becomes your displacement vector, this becomes your position vector, right? So this is how you pointing from the initial position to the final position. Path length and displacement are not the same. We have covered it exclusively in one of our mechanics classes. In most of my long videos, I cover it elaborately, right? So we know that the path length, which is the distance covered, is not the same as displacement. So this becomes the displacement vector, and this is how you define your position vectors. Well, when do you say any two given vectors are equal? So, any two given physical quantities having same magnitude and same direction are always referred to as equal vectors. What do you mean by that? Which means if you are measuring a physical quantity like velocity, if two cars are heading in the same direction, let's say they are heading in the north direction with a speed of 18 meter per second, then you say that those vectors are equal because they are moving in the same direction. They're moving towards the north, and also they're moving with the same magnitude of speed, which is 18 meter per second. Such vectors are referred to as equal vectors. But how do we represent equal vectors? So equal represent vectors can be, vectors are represented with a straight line with an arrow mark. So suppose if you are representing one velocity OA, okay, so if this is the velocity vector, it is heading in this direction. Similarly, you have another velocity vector OB, which is also heading in the same direction as this. They both are heading in the same direction, okay, with equal, you see that the length of the vector measures gives you the magnitude of the vectors. So their length is also same, so they have the same length, right, which gives you the magnitude, same length and heading in the same direction. Such vectors so are equal vectors. So this vector v1, if this is vector v1 and vector v2, they are equal. So vector v1 is equal to vector v2. Also the magnitude of vector e1 is equal to vector e2. When do you say two vectors are not equal vectors? Very simple. When they have probably the same magnitude, let's take the same vectors, they have the same magnitude, but let's say they are heading in opposite directions. So one is heading in this direction, one is heading in the opposite direction. You see this vector is heading in the opposite direction, although it has the same magnitude. So here both OA, magnitude of OA is same as magnitude of OB, both are equal, which is equal to 18 meter per second. But when you talk about the direction, one is heading towards this direction, another is heading towards this direction, they are heading in the opposite direction. So such vectors cannot be called as equal vectors. For any vector to be called as equal vector, it has to head in the same direction. So one vector, suppose velocity of a car, one car is moving with a speed of 18 meter per second due east, another car is moving with the same velocity due north, then you cannot call such vectors as equal vectors. But if they're moving in the same direction, also if both of them are either moving in the east direction with the same velocity, or in the west direction, north direction, or northeast direction, same direction, same speed, you refer to such vectors as equal vectors. Now let's talk about multiplication of vectors. Can you multiply a vector by a given real number? Suppose, let's say, there is a vector called lambda. This is the vector. Can you multiply, or you have a vector A. Vector A could be anything. It could be velocity, acceleration, force, any physical quantity. Okay, it has a certain magnitude, certain direction. Now, can I multiply this with 2? Okay, let's first represent this vector A pictorially. Let's imagine this is vector A. Okay. So this is your vector A, and let's say it has a certain magnitude. So the length of the vector, as you know, gives you the magnitude of the vector. Now suppose I want to measure, multiply it with 2. So what will happen? The length of the vector gets doubled. So you will have double the length. So therefore this will be your vector 2A. So you see it is basically doubled in length, right? So this is how you multiply any given vector. Here you see the value of 2 is greater than 0. What will happen if you have a value less than 0, or if you have a negative number? Suppose, let's say if you have 1.5a, if you want to make minus 1.5a. So first thing is I have to reduce it in, I have to write the same vector and write 0.5 half of this vector, because it is 0.5 extra. But then it is associated with the minus sign, which tells me the direction is opposite to the direction of vector A. So minus 0.5, minus 1.5. So first let's write the same length of the vector, same length, okay, and then half of this length. So that will be your 0.5, 1.5, but in an opposite direction. So this will be minus 1.5 vector A. This is 2 vector A. So this is how you multiply any given vector. Okay. So this is how you basically multiply any given vector. What will happen if you multiply the vector with 0? So if you multiply this vector with a 0 vector, the answer will be a 0 vector. If you add a vector with a 0 vector, what is a 0 vector? A 0 vector has direction but the magnitude is nil. There is no, the magnitude would be 0. Okay, it has a direction but the magnitude is 0. So therefore it is vector A. So these are certain properties. So if you multiply, it will be 0 vector. What is the example for a 0 vector? The best example is, let's say if you are, starting from a point A, you are plotting x versus t, you are moving along a plane, you start from this point A and go to point B and then go to point C, then go to point D and then come back to point A. So this is your motion. This is how the path length, if you have to measure the distance traveled, you measure the length, you take a thread along this, or you cut it into several areas and find out the area, or find out the circumference. So that will give you the path length covered. But if you have to measure the displacement, you see you started, this was your initial position, and what was your final position after a long time? You came back to the same point. So what was your displacement? Your displacement was 0. So here displacement becomes a null vector if you covered if your initial point and the final point coincide with each other. Such vectors are referred to as null vectors. So these are certain properties of vectors. Now let's understand how do we add any given vector. Well, if you have confusion understanding triangle law of vector addition, let's try to understand it step by step. Let's take two vectors. So triangle law of vector addition basically gives you or tells you how to add any two given vectors. So this will be very crucial and helpful when you do electrostatics or numericals where you basically deal with vectors. So here let's take two vectors. Let's say this is vector A. Okay, so this is vector A, this is, and let's say there is another vector here which is vector B. Now the job is, somebody asks you, how do you pictorially show me that what will be the sum of A and B? How do you find the sum of vector A and vector B? So what do you mean by vector A and vector B? You need to understand. So this could be the velocity of a car moving in the east direction, and this could be the velocity. So how do I know the east direction? Because I know this is north, this is east, this is west, and this is south. So it is heading towards east. So this could be the velocity of a car in the east direction. This could be the velocity of the car. It is moving in the northwest direction or could be the southwest direction depending upon the quadrant it is in, depends on the value. So they are in two different directions, right? So how do you add these kind of vectors which are moving in two different directions? If it is just the velocity, you can add them. It will have a particular number, it will be moving with a particular velocity, this will be moving with a particular velocity, you could just randomly add them. But then if you have to add vectors, add their directions also, there is a simple rule called the triangle law of vector addition. What does it have to say? So take vector A, okay, so you take vector A and slide this vector B till it coincides with the tail of, so you have to draw it literally parallel to vector B. So you slide it till this point. So this is your vector B. How do you slide it? You slide it such that the tail of vector A, vector B touches the tail of the second vector, touches the tail of the head of the first vector. This is called the head and this is called the tail, arrowhead and the tail. Now after you slide it, what happens? How do you find the resultant? The resultant is given by a vector starting from the first vector to the second vector. So the resultant vector R is given by vector R is equal to vector A plus vector B. The resultant vector always starts from the tail of the first vector to the head of the second vector, right? So this is your vector 1, vector 2, and this is your resultant vector. So vector 1, tail to head, then again tail to head. Resultant vector will be the tail of, from the tail of the first vector to the head of the second vector gives you the resultant of vector addition, and this law is what is known as the triangle law of vector addition. I hope this part was clear. If you want to know it in much detail, watch the long video. Watch this video, you will get to know more. Okay, now I hope you have understood this is how the triangle law of vector addition is done. Now, does this triangle of, I mean, the addition of vectors, do they follow two properties called the commutative property and the associative property? So what does the commutative property say? So the commutative property of addition is, it should be adding vector A first with vector B, or adding vector B, if you change the order, will be the resultant same. Yes, this holds good for vectors. You can add, I mean, you can make this as the, how do you make that as the first vector? So this was your vector B, right? So this was your vector A. So what you could do is, you could slide, instead of sliding vector B parallelly to vector A, what you could do is, you can slide this vector down and attach it here. So this will be vector A. So this becomes your first vector. Vector B becomes your first vector. Now what will be the resultant? The resultant will point from the first vector. This was your first vector, second vector. Resultant always points out from first vector to the second vector. So this becomes your R. So R here will be vector B plus vector A, and they give you the same value, so there won't be any change in value and direction. So it is vector A plus B holds good, same as vector B plus A. Does it follow the associative law of addition? Yes, it does. What do you mean by associative law? Association is grouping of the vectors. You can group the vectors. Suppose if you have three vectors, you can add A plus B first and then add vector C, or it is same as adding vector B and C first, okay, and then add that vector to vector A, also gives you the same resultant. We will see how it is done diagrammatically, but yes, this holds good. These properties like commutative law of vector addition and associative law of vector addition also holds good for vectors, just like any other physical quantities. So I hope you have understood. It is basically sliding it parallel. If you have any questions, you can always pin down in the comments. I'm more than happy to answer and make more videos on it. Okay, now let's see, let's take this example of associative law of vector addition. Let's say take three vectors, vector A, B and C. So let's imagine this is vector A, okay, and then you have another vector B, okay, so then you have another vector C, okay. So this is how you are adding. Now what will I do? I do not consider this, I don't know this about this vector. So this is my first vector, this is my second vector. So your resultant vector will be from first vector's tail to the head of the second vector. So this becomes A plus B, right? Now this is not there. I do not have vector A and B. What do I have? I only have these two vectors, right? Vector AB. So I am adding vector, the resultant of vector AB to this. So this becomes your first vector and this becomes your second vector now. So the resultant vector will point from the first vector to the tail of this. So this becomes your resultant. So this is how you do the grouping. Similarly, you could change the order. You could add B and C first. Let's do that as well. So this was vector A. This was vector B. Okay. And this was vector C. So we have to add B and C first. So we will not see vector A. So this becomes your first vector. This becomes your second vector. If you are adding them first, from the first vector's tail to the head of the second vector, this becomes vector B plus vector C. Now you do not have B and C. You just have the resultant of this. So this is your first vector. The diagonal line is the first vector. This is your second vector. So where your resultant will point? Your resultant will point from, the resultant will, you have to draw them separately. Probably you will have to reverse them because you can't draw it here. They are in this direction. They are basically like this. They are not supposed to be like this. It has to come down like this. You have to rearrange that vector, right? Yes. Yes. Okay, sorry. So this is the vector. Sorry, yes. So it is pointing in this direction. Sorry, I totally got confused. So therefore, this is your first vector and this is your second vector. From the first vector's tail to the head of the second vector, yes, this needs to be parallelly brought down. So what you have to basically do is you have to probably bring it down like this. So this is your vector B and vector C. So this has to be parallelly brought down. So then it becomes your vector A. Okay, so you get the similar result. Now you group and add them. So this is your first vector, this is your second vector, from the tail of that to the head of the second. So that becomes your resultant. You can add it like this separately. I hope you got my point, right? So why couldn't I add it here? Why did I get confused? Because you see, this is how it looks. You cannot add them like this. It was like this. I needed, because I assumed this to be the first vector and this to be the second. So from the tail of the first to the second, head of the second, it was not in the same order. So I had to parallelly slide this down and write it this way, and then add it together, because this was my first vector. From the tail of the first vector to the head of the second vector was your resultant. So this is how you basically add vectors. Now let's explore how do you subtract the same vector. Okay. Well, yes. Now let's now try and understand how to subtract any given vectors. So we call it the subtraction of vectors. So what is the subtraction of vectors? How do you understand basically subtraction of vectors? Any subtraction of vectors is given by the fact, let's say this is vector A, okay, you have vector A, and this is vector B. So if you have to add them, you directly add them like this. Let's first add them. So vector A, right, this is your first vector. Write it down, your first vector. From the head of the first vector to it points like this. This becomes your vector B, right? So this is your second vector. So what will be the resultant? Resultant always starts from the tail of the first vector to the head of the second vector. This is your resultant R, which is A plus B. But I am looking not at A plus B, but I want to find out A minus B. How can you write A minus B? It is nothing but A plus of minus B. So the negative, I have to add the negative of B to vector A. So what is the negative of B? It only tells me it is in the opposite direction. So what do? I have to write the vector, the same vector, you have to write it in the negative direction. So this is your vector minus B. So you have vector A here, your first vector, minus plus of minus B, that is your minus vector. So this is your second vector. From the tail of the first vector to the head of the second vector becomes your resultant, which is nothing but, you can show it here also, right? So that is your resultant. So therefore the resultant is vector A plus of minus B. The negative, you just reverse the direction. So that is how you subtract any two given vectors. These are very crucial rules. They're very helpful in solving a lot of numericals. Do not ignore them. It is best you understand them. Well, this is another rule of adding any two given vectors, which is the parallelogram law of vector addition. How do you add them? Let us give, you have vector A and vector B. So if you have to add it according to parallelogram law, you are not going to arrange them from head to tail. What you are going to do is, you will assume a convenient origin, and from there you write each vector. So they stem from the origin O. So this is vector A and this is vector B. So this is your vector 1 and vector B. And what you do, unlike triangle law, we arrange them in a head to tail fashion. What do you mean by that? What did I do? I generally used to write vector A, and from the head of the first vector we start the tail of the second vector, and we add them in this fashion. There is a certain fashion we follow. That is triangle law of vector addition. And while finding the resultant, you start from the tail of the first vector and reach the head of the second vector. That becomes your resultant vector, and it looks like a triangle. So therefore this is also called as head to tail addition, or it is also referred to as triangle law of vector addition. But since the name itself suggests it is parallelogram law, basically I am trying to construct a parallelogram and find the resultant. So that is why I took a origin, and from the origin they both stem. So the tail of both the vectors start and they head towards in opposite directions. Using this, let me complete the parallelogram. So if you complete the parallelogram, you draw a parallel line. So you slide this vector, you draw a line parallel to vector B. Similarly, you slide this vector, you draw another line parallel to this. So basically it is like this. Okay, now you completed the parallelogram. So the resultant vector is generally the diagonal of the parallelogram. So from parallelogram law of vector addition, this becomes vector R is equal to vector A plus vector B. It is correct also, because you basically slided this vector So this will be the arrowhead. You slided this vector, right? When you slide it, you are arranging it in the opposite fashion. Okay, so this that is how it is done. So parallelogram law is basically sliding parallel to this vector and sliding parallel to this vector. You draw lines, and the diagonal always gives the resultant. Okay, so such law is what to referred as parallelogram law of vector addition. This is very crucial in dealing, in solving problems on electrostatics. If you watch the electrostatics video that we have done a lot of numericals on that while doing the field calculation. We'll take some more in our upcoming videos, but then these are very crucial things. It is essential that you learn very well in your class 11. Yes, so with this we wind up the class, and in my next class we are going to talk a little bit more on vectors, learn all other properties of vectors, how to resolve a vector, which is very essential that you learn in class 11. If you take care of vectors, vectors will take care of you.